Denius here, and we're going to talk about the OAuth 2.0 Webflow, which is the technology that you use on any given site that lets you, say, sign in with Facebook. And so that magic happens in a way that I think can be embodied by this metaphor that the access token that OAuth provides a site to be able to log in as you is just like the valet key for a car. So I had a car once, and that's a security keypad that'll come into play later. My car didn't have that, but it did have a special key that could start the car, but it could not open the trunk, and it's called a valet key. And the valet key is a limited scope key that you can give to people that you don't trust all the way, but you do want some convenience of using their service. So, for example, if you're valet parking at a restaurant, you want to let the restaurant have some access to your car, but not all access. So the OAuth metaphor is that of a car that can issue its own valet keys. So how does that work? First, the car has to be set up to have a relationship with a particular restaurant. And when that gets set up, an ID and a password will be assigned to that restaurant. And the scopes, in other words, the parts of the car that key can start, are going to be defined and set in stone. So if there's no trunk access for the valets at that restaurant, it's going to be established right up front. And that ID that the restaurant has, when they provide it, and the password that authenticates them, they will be unable to get a token for anything but those scopes. So now what happens is you drive up and you are prepared to allow this restaurant to have use of your car. So then they enter their ID and password, and that authenticates them, and then they get a key for the correct scopes. So that is the kind of magic that is occurring with the OAuth 2.0 Webflow. And the reason that this is better than giving full access, well, if you gave every site your username and password, then first of all, that'd be a terrible idea to give anyone your password. But second of all, it would give them 100% access to your account. And to perform whatever function, like the function of parking the car, they don't need 100% access. So the reason that you do this OAuth dance is to make it so that the sites that you want some convenience out of don't end up owning you. All right, so here is the full flow of that song and dance. So basically, the four parties involved are the user, the OAuth provider, which is in red, the car, which we're going to say GitHub is the example. You want to provide a sign in with GitHub button on your site. So the other two parties are a site administrator who sets up OAuth initially, and then the site itself, or like the valet at the site, who's the one who has a direct encounter with the user. So the site admin goes to GitHub and says, I want a sign in with GitHub button. So I am going to tell you what scopes I need, because it's in the restaurant's best interest not to ask for the trunk if they don't need the trunk. That's just liability, right? So they set up which scopes they want, and in exchange, GitHub, the OAuth provider, gives them an ID and secret, right? So then they are able, the site admin, to give every valet at that site, so in other words, the deployed web servers, give them the ID and secret that will be used when users come to get tokens for those users, or valet keys for those users' cars. So now a user comes to the site says, hey, go and tell GitHub that you want to give a valet key to my ID. All right, so that's the get, where you pass the site ID, and then GitHub will give you a little piece of information, and then you have to post that information back with the ID and the secret. So now GitHub says, well, you have the secret of this valet, so you clearly must have talked to that valet. So I am going to give, not you, but I will give that valet a token for accessing the site as you. And that was set up in the very first step where the site administrator set up the app and scopes and told them who they are and where they want to receive the tokens at. So then the token gets posted back to the site, and the site can access your account data, whatever you've permitted via scopes, from either the server side or the client side. So that is OAuth 2.0 Webflow in a nutshell. It's an amazing little piece of technology, very neat to allow users to kind of express through the sign-up process. Also gives you some good information about your users if you ask for the correct amount of information via scopes. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks a lot.